Episode 28, Jenny's Rules. I have Emily Murphy with Refined Realty.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Are you excited?
I am excited.
Good.
This has been so fun.
When I first reached out and I was like, hey, you should come on here. You're like, really, me? And I'm like, yes. Duh.
I'm like, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about you and the industry and your journey, pretty much, which I've been known. I know what your journey is, but I have to ask, that's the first question, is when did you start? What year? How long have you been in the industry?
So I started, it was 2019. And then, so I started and then got my license throughout 2019. So what is that? Just over 5 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
Going on 6.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oof. Not wild.
It is wild.
Because you right out of the gate, you know, that you had, did you have both of your state, Washington and Idaho?
Yeah. Thank goodness. Because I bet that would have been such a mess.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to do testing and stuff when they shut down the testing centers. So
Yeah.
But Selena and I were actually talking about that at Alliance Title today. We were talking about all the different forms because they still have a COVID form in their closing.
They do.
And I was like, when do you think they'll get rid of that? And she goes, never.
Never. Part of it now.
Like, oh,
Yep.
we can't forgive and forget. That's
No,
fine.
apparently not. Legally.
Yeah.
The legal document. I know. And with you starting, you were an assistant first.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep. So
Yeah.
I ran a lot of the back end side of things. So like the closing gifts, the marketing, paperwork, things like that. And then it wasn't until, let's see, that would have been 2022, 21, somewhere in there, that I went and decided to go and actually sell.
Yeah.
And then I've been doing that ever since. So
And I feel like that gives you kind of a one up. I don't know, knowing the back end
Yeah.
stuff so well.
I think so too, especially being able to like navigate different, knowing, because I like doing both parts of it. I like seeing all of that stuff through. So, and I think I got that because that was my first role
Yeah.
when I came into real estate. So,
And documents and
yeah.
everything to PSAs. Did you ever pull comps or like do any of
No.
that? No.
Very few and far between. Once I
Okay.
did get my license, I did, but it wasn't anything like I was left in charge of doing
Yeah.
that, which was totally
The decision, but the back end stuff, I don't know, give people that maybe listen that just don't know any of that kind of paperwork or like what entails in the back end. When you say back end, like, because I have my back end of loan stuff, which is our processing, and we get all the documents and get the purchase and sale agreement, that those are kind of back end things.
Yeah.
But for you guys, like, what is something that people might not know is a back end?
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good like misconception on like what people do in our industry, right? So, the back end side of real estate, at least from my perspective, is gathering all the paperwork that you're initially going to need to sign. If you're a buyer, going through those buyer consultations, making sure that there's, education, like different materials that they'll need. And then really the back end side of things is once an offer or a listing is either live or accepted, being able to run those documents. So making sure all the documents are signed where they need to be signed, making sure that they're submitted into the platforms that we use that are for compliance, and being able to make sure that all the pieces are there. So in that way, if we were to ever get audited or looked at, that we're never going to have to be like, oh no, I don't have all the pieces. So that's really, I think, where I got my appreciation for it, was being able to like go through with those check marks and being like, nope, I know 100% sure to the best of my ability, this is done correctly.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I think a lot of the time, most of the people think like we're HGTV.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love to go look at $1 million house. Like,
Selling sunsets.
yeah, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If anybody wants me to come look at their $1 million house, I'm happy to. But that's truly like being able to look at the,
Yeah.
A plus B equals C each time,
Yeah.
knowing all those pieces. It's a huge part of it.
Like, it's a big part that people don't see is the majority of it.
Yeah.
That's the work that is getting to where you need to be to get into the house, but they don't see really much of that. Or
Yeah.
Do you communicate kind of, step by step, like where we're sitting and kind of stuff like that with your clients? And
I like to,
yeah,
because I think that it just gives a better appreciation for the process.
yeah.
Especially like those people, first time home buyers,
Ugh.
or even people that have bought and sold, maybe 50 years ago. They might not remember all the pieces that go into it.
Yeah.
And for some people, when you go under contract on a property, it's going to come across as this huge waiting, like this, okay, hurry and wait and then sit. And we don't have anything between here and here.
No,
So,
just crickets almost.
yeah. So I would rather just like minimal, weekly updates, or as things come in, update them. I'm a huge communication person as far as like I want people to have the most knowledge and power they can. So that's where I'm like, I would rather over communicate with you and you'd be like, it's kind of annoying.
It's okay.
Then
No.
you'd be like, hey, where are you?
Yeah.
Are you on vacation somewhere?
Oh no. Oh no. I had that happen where it was just recently too, and she was on a cruise. Like she wanted to buy a house, signed the purchase and sale, left for 2 weeks. And it was like, we need document stuff and all this. And then she lost her phone. Oh, it was a whole big brigade, but we made it work.
Yeah.
But just stuff like that, it happens.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, every transaction, there's never been two that's the same.
No.
And
Even with the same person.
yeah.
Like if I've had more than one, I've had a few different times where they've like bought and sold, or like investment properties, they bought one and then they come back and buy another. They're never the same.
Never the same.
No, even if it's with the same person, it's never the same.
And their same information, their same stuff, but yeah,
Yep,
it's always something.
it is.
Now that you've built it for now a few years,
Yeah.
do you feel settled, like in it? Like I don't know if
I feel like confident in the way that I can like create and run through things.
okay,
So like if someone were to come to me and be like, hey, I want to buy a house, like 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, let's hit the ground and let's go. And there is that one, hiccup with that one hiccup person that's like, okay, we might need to pump the brakes and feel it out a little bit more. I still feel like there's way, way more than enough for me to learn. There's always something new coming out, like the commission changes.
yes,
There's always stuff to learn about that.
Yes.
Or, the updated rules and IMLS guidelines and things like that, kind of makes it fun to keep you on your toes just enough to be able to like dive into those things
Yeah.
while still feeling confident in the building blocks that we're already like, these are fundamentally there.
yeah.
So
Oh, that's a great answer. Because if I think about my years, just only a couple that I've been in my industry, I feel still so small but it's that like I have the backing and I know what is like to be true and I know what can be approved and all that. Right now I'm having this hard time with like first time home buyers or people with bad credit and something where they come to me and they're like, well, what can I afford? And I tell them and it's not what's on.
Yeah.
There's nothing in their price range.
Yeah.
It's too low. And
yeah, and it's defeating.
so defeating. And that's where I'm feeling like,
Well, and I don't know about
Keep up.
you, but I'm a fixer. I love to fix problems, even if they have nothing to do with me. I've always been that way. So like these first time home buyers that, are going against people that have cash or that have the ability to buy, it's one of those things that it's like, I just want to fix the problem.
yep.
But
I'm such a people pleaser too.
Yeah.
That it's just like I had clients and I told them, kind of where they were and what their price was, which was like $175,000. And it was like, we could talk about getting a cosigner or, something and they were like, well, what can I buy for 175? And I was like, I don't know.
yeah, you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. But it's just, I feel like I need to handle that better because then it's like, there is nothing out there, and I wish I could
Find these houses that they could, yeah.
you.
I think that in terms of that, like having those hard conversations, I'd say like even 5 years in hasn't been any easier than when I first came in. And I think it's because of that aspect of people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think it's the way that people respond to of like, oh, well, I've found out what I need to find out and now the sky's falling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the building up of that, like trying to break that mentality that the sky's not falling. Maybe this is where you're at now, but if it's not where you want to be, then let's figure out how to get you to where you want to be.
Ooh, that was a good answer.
So,
So good.
been practicing that.
Motivational speaker. No, it's good. And it's, yeah, I don't know if it's just because of the years that have been kind of a struggle with the market and the rates and,
Yeah.
you know, everything. And I am like waiting for the day to have it go back to being normal.
Yeah.
I put that in
This
quotations
normal, yeah.
because it's just not been the same.
Yeah.
And so I've never seen anything that's been, I don't know, consistent. And when like you started, I'm sure, like, I don't know, what was like the biggest like craziness about like from when you first started to now? Is there anything that's just like shocking to you?
I don't mean this mean, but people's mentality. And I say that in the way of like, when I first got into the business, I feel like there was this sense of like, sure, we'd love to get as most as we can for our house, but I'm okay with coming down here. And same with buyers. Like, I'm okay with paying this much, but I'd love to spend this much here. And now I feel like, while it might not be intentional, there's kind of like a sense of like greed or pride that's being had by people where they want what they want for themselves, and it's kind of like it's not a win for both parties. And that's where I feel like there's this big disconnect right now.
Yes.
So
that's a good one.
I think it's going to take, you know, those people to, somebody's going to have to break the cycle of that mentality. And I don't think that there's very many people that are brave enough to do it yet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I was thinking like if you think of someone that's putting their house on, you know, and they want a certain price for it, like that is what we're going to sell it for. And they're not going to budge. Like what's the time, especially like if they're trying to buy something in just, you know, something new, or it's like, when's that like point where you need to maybe like suggest other options, or do you just let that be theirs always decisions, like if, you know, someone was to list?
I think that the conversation needs to be had beforehand, before it even gets listed. And I say that from a place of, most of my business is buyers. So from the listing standpoint, like I might have a different perspective than most people. I really think that having those conversations up front, like, okay, well, if we can justify your price, that's one thing. But if we want to start in a price that's not appropriate, then just know, like, I think setting those parameters up front, okay, if we have no action on it in the first 3 weeks, then at the month point we're going to lower it to this. Or at 2 months we're going to lower it to this. And if you don't want to, you know, if that's not something that you want to do, that's okay, but this is my recommendation as a professional in this field. And that's what I'm telling. I don't want you to get your heart set on this number when that's not realistic in this market anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you price it right, it should go. That's the principle, right? If
Yeah.
you price it right, it'll go. But sometimes we're not seeing that. So
that's good. Man. I'm just sucked in. So good. Like lately, like what are you feeling like? Like you said, you deal with more buyers and it fluxes, I'm sure.
yeah.
Is there anything that's been kind of consistent with any of your years of work? Nothing.
I don't think so. I mean,
All over.
even the mentality of a buyer is different from, and I think it's because, you know, we were seeing this huge, like, the lack of houses. You know, even 2 years ago, it was like when something came on,
Gone.
we were standing in line to show buyers. And that was, you know, I feel like that's kind of maybe where we started seeing this defeat for most people, is like they were beat down from that. And then to walk away and the market start to change, and now there's these houses, but now they're still kind of defeated and they don't want to try as hard, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I completely understand that feeling.
Yeah.
So it's just, I feel like it's one of those things that I'm with you. I think time will be a huge factor in the way that, you know, business is carried. Obviously real estate's always been, you know, these rolling hills and these peaks and valleys and stuff. So I think eventually it'll catch up and it'll figure itself out, but not unless greed takes a backseat.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, good. So good. Just ah, the lifestyle of like how do you mind me asking this? How old were you and you and your husband bought a house?
let's see. We bought our house 20. He's gonna watch this and be like, no. Remember. Let's see. So we got married in 2020, and that's when we sold our house. So it had to have been 2019. We were in the midst of planning our wedding when we sold our first house.
Oh, lovely.
So, and we only owned it for a little over a year.
Did you flip it?
No.
No. Nice.
It was just one of those things. We bought it for sale by owner, saw it on Zillow, bought it for sale by owner, and kind of did that like silly first time home buyer thing where we didn't like think anything through. We were just like, oh, this is cute. So, let's see, that would have been, 2019. So 5 years ago, so early 20s.
Early 20s.
Yeah.
When you think, and I think about when we bought our house, did I know what loan program we had at that time? No. Did I know it? No. But now that I'm in it, it's like, oh my gosh, I was blind.
Yeah.
No idea. You were, just in your career.
Mm-hmm.
What do you now, if you were to buy now or anything, would you change some ways that you're thinking from? Yes.
Yes, 100%. I really think that well, I think a lot of the time people are so excited. Your excitement takes over the like knowledgeable decision making process.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see my Christmas tree right there. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know how many times I've shown someone a house and they're like, that's where my Christmas tree is gonna go. And it's like, okay, well that is a good spot for it. But let's think about where the fridge is gonna go. Let's talk about that for a minute. I think that I would have done a lot more research as far as, researching people in your field.
Yes.
I think that my situation buying my first house was a little bit different for the real estate side of things, but doing that research and figuring out the different programs that's offered in lending, that is one thing that I wish I would have completely changed.
Oh yeah.
We went with a first time home buyer loan when we bought our house.
Yep.
And I just, thought that it sounded so good because it's like,
What a benefit.
I don't have to buy it. I don't have to bring in any money.
Yep.
Sign me up. Like a credit card, right?
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
So, and it's not that it was a terrible experience. It's not that it was a terrible loan choice.
Sure.
But I just wish that someone would have pushed me to make a knowledgeable decision instead of what was convenient.
Yeah.
So
Doing a little more on your end on terms of just making sure you know all the options.
yeah.
Because me too. Oh man. And my husband, so if you've ever met him, he's probably gonna watch this too and be like, oh, he's very shy and he's such an introvert, which I love because I'm such an extrovert. But he was the one that really took over. Like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out, and we went where he picked, and I just was kind of along for the ride. And then we got into the house, and I was like, I'm a really bad visualer when it comes to like seeing things like the Christmas tree over there. Cool.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I'm one of those, I just have to have an idea of like a picture of like, this is the same layout. Here's the tree. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
But, he looked at it and was like, well, this needs done and this needs done. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went with it. But now, oh man, I would have loved to, and I should have been a little more involved in like what we were picking for loan stuff, or the house. I love our house. We've raised our kids in it, but oh man, the house is the death of me.
Yeah. And there's so many things you don't think about when you walk through a house, right? And especially as a first time home buyer. I mean, you walk in and
Yes.
you see, I feel like this over dramatized like hallmark of what could be, right? And then it's like, okay, well, if we break that down, let's make a list of all these things that we want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And then let's think about, do we have the money for it? Do we have the space for it? And is this a location we want? When we bought our first house, that was something I didn't consider, was the location. And I mean, granted, right? You're gonna walk in it, and whoever is around that house, whoever's home at that time is who you're gonna see.
Yes.
And then you might go back once or twice between when you go under contract and when you close. But I mean, you're really not gonna know your neighbors. You're not gonna. You can do your research on the location, right?
Sure.
It's a little bit different being in the valley. You're not
Yeah.
like there's no like suburbs or
No.
anything like that. So I wish I would have done more research on that because that was something that our neighbors were terrible.
Oh, no.
And I don't think like we had some neighbors, really nice older couple on the other side of us, and they were fine. But the other neighbors on the other side, it was just like not something. And even when we went to sell the house, I was like mortified. Like I would do anything to be in a different location, and I wish that we would have thought about that prior to going in and going under contract and buying it. But at the time, the house was for sale by owner, and the owner told us, "Oh, this other lady's coming to put in an offer on it. So if you guys want it, you need to put in." And me being like, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we need to do it, and we need to do it now. Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm like, thinking about it now, I'm like, there was no other person.
No.
Do I know that? No.
No.
Can I take a wild bet
Yeah.
and say that there was no other person? Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No. I think that people who are buying a house, you're buying the location more than the house. You might love a house, but if you buy that house and both neighbors on both sides and then the ones across the street, don't fit your lifestyle or don't fit the vision of what you have for a house, to me, that's something that I would walk away over.
Huge.
So, and I don't think people stress that enough.
That's so true. Well, and I just think of like you said, those houses that were going up that people were in line to see it and putting in, it's like, and it was mainly the price.
Yep.
It's either that's where they fell in or that's like what they were comfortable. They didn't care about other things, and just throwing at it. And it's like, oh.
Well, think about how many people bought a house when interest rates were, deemed so low. And now they're like, I hate this place.
Yep.
But I feel like I can't get
Yes.
rid of it because of the fact that interest rates are so high.
Yes.
So,
And again, I don't know what normal is. And
Yeah.
and the whole refinance when things get better. And
Yep.
that's always great. But the prediction of them saying like, well, when will that be? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish I could. But it's that same too. And I try to, like, if anybody is interested in selling, find out if your loan is assumable, like that someone else could take over that interest rate. They have to be able to handle the loan and all that stuff. But because that helps and it gets people to, understand like you can give it to someone.
there's ways.
There's ways.
There's ways. Have you done that yet?
No, not yet. And it's also because whoever you go through, the seller, you have to go through who they went through.
Okay.
So sometimes I would, suggest like, just give the name of who you went through and then they will be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I haven't personally. No, my first HELOC, I was telling you, is coming up and
Yep.
those rates are a whole other ball game. But
Let's talk about high rates. Let's talk about that.
you want to do it? You want to do that? Yeah, it's just because like, at the beginning of the year, the Fed was like, oh yeah, we're going to raise or lower so many times throughout the year. But they don't say how many times they're going to raise it right back up.
Yeah. Because they only want to paint the picture of the possibility, right?
Yes.
So to so many people, they're like, okay, well, when it hits this, and who knows, maybe it hit that at 1 a.m. for 6 minutes, like
It's changing
so
much.
it's a bummer that that's the way. Well, and social media plays such a huge part in that, right?
Oh yeah.
Because it's created the narrative that it's going to drop this many times this year and be able to be at this percentage, and then everybody can buy again, right?
Yeah.
And on June 16th, we're going to open the door. There'll be 5% on June 16th, right?
Yep.
But then it's like,
Boop. Overnight.
yeah,
Up to 7.
yeah.
It's like that's huge for people that are like, if they're really penny pinching and they're looking at their monthly payment, because that's very much the only thing that they really want to know is how much is going to be my monthly payment. And we try to get as much information for taxes and insurance of, what it'll be and all this. But that interest rate, if it just changes just a tiny bit, can throw you completely out.
Yeah.
In your debt to income ratio, and then you're not even qualified anymore.
Yeah. And then we go back to the defeat thing.
Yep.
I mean, with how quick interest rates change.
Yep.
It feels like it doesn't come across as fair.
Yeah.
To most people. It's not fair that they change like that, because one day I'm pre-approved and I'm ready to go, and then the next day I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, I feel like we're definitely seeing a lot more of the communication and talking people through the emotion behind these things.
Yes.
More so than actually the nitty gritty of what it actually is.
Yeah.
So
it's not over. It's just a hiccup, and either you need to adjust that price that you want, which then it's it goes down so low that there's not even a house in that price range. Which is, for me, if I think back to when I bought our house, the price and what it's worth now, oh my gosh, cool. I can sell it. But where would I go?
Yeah.
Where am I going to live?
Yeah. And we hear that from so many people.
Yeah.
I would love to cash in on the equity that's built in my house, but where am I going to go?
Yeah.
And I completely understand that mentality. I understand both sides of it, because we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Right? We've done a lot of stuff to our house to get it to be we've built all of that equity into it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that people are going to have to sit longer than they want to be able to not play their emotions into wanting to sell it, and using the knowledge of what could be further down the road.
Yes.
So
or
we're kind of all shaking this magic 8 ball of what interest rates are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
I don't
know.
You are very handsy.
Solid. We're doing good there.
I can't believe I meant hands-on. Oh, my palms got sweaty. I said you're very hands-on. Because, you, like you said, you've done your own work to your own house. You too, yeah?
Yeah.
And I mean, we were just helping our clients, the other day. And so it's what do you feel is that something that you're having to put a little bit more into with clients?
I don't think I have to. I think I choose to, maybe because of the fact that it's the people pleaser thing in me. I want people to be happy, but I also feel if I was in their shoes, I would want someone who's going to go the extra mile to make sure that, and it's not I'm going to go mow their lawn for the first year of them owning a house, right? I mean, that might be a cool deal. Maybe I'll think about that.
Buy a car and get a first oil change free for a year.
Yeah, get those free car wash coupons. I don't know. So it's more so, to me, those things I feel make more of an impact. And with this being such a huge life decision for people, going that extra step and me doing it personally, I think to some extent fills my cup and makes me feel like I'm providing the best service to them that I can.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, it needs to be a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Was getting up on a ladder with the super wind yesterday, cleaning out the gutters, a win for me? Probably not, but I'm glad today it's done.
It's good.
So I'm glad that we're closing tomorrow. And I'm not going to say that it's because of that, but
it's something extra.
Shout out to Whitney Branting for that deal.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I think that providing that extra step and doing it personally, so then that way it's not a piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
I don't want, in me right now where I'm at in my business, I don't want to outsource those kinds of things when I know I could go do it myself.
There you go.
And I hope that it speaks volumes to the service that I provide and the type of transaction and experience I want people to have.
Yeah.
So,
do you get your husband to do projects with you?
I haven't had to yet.
Oh, good.
But did I almost think about asking him to come hold the ladder last night? Yeah.
Oh, especially in the wind.
Yeah.
You crazy girl.
So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was just, it's okay. The neighbors were out. They had their chairs.
Did they?
They were sitting by their fire pit. So if I would have fallen, someone would have heard me. But I haven't had to have him roped into anything. I did have him go to a listing appointment with me once just because I didn't know the people.
Yeah. And that's 100%.
I was out of town. And
Yeah.
I was like, you just want to ride with me?
Yeah.
You can come and meet these people. And they were so nice.
Oh, good.
They kind of thought it was like cute.
Yeah.
Because to most people, right, we don't see a lot of those like negative things.
No.
But all it's going to take is one.
Yep. That's it. It's sour. Yeah. Sour. Oh my gosh.
So.
Well, and my last podcast hasn't been posted yet. It will now, probably once we post yours, but she does a lot way out with no self-service.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I can't picture or have that like that worry in the back of my mind, because I am always in an office or behind a phone or an email. And like with you guys actually having to go out and see some people that you might not know at all.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of a scary thing to think. So,
I think it gets played down a little bit too. Like,
yeah.
The dramatic aspect of like, oh, it's fine. You're in the valley.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not fine though. I mean, everybody sees the news. Everybody sees some of the stuff that goes around. And it's like, well, if you got misled by someone for saying like, oh, I have this $600,000 house. Can you come give me a CMA on it? And then come to find out, who knows? It may not even be their house, right? Like that's the part of us that, one, we need to do our knowledge and like back digging behind it before even going.
Yeah.
But I think it's becoming more often seen that either a real estate agent brings another one with them to a listing appointment, or a showing with someone that they don't know, or bringing someone that could be, like, I don't want to say a babysitter, but just like
just look
there.
out. Yeah. Yeah.
And whether that be like they drive and they just sit in the car,
Yeah.
like that could be all that they do. Or sometimes, people just bring other people and, hey, they're going to walk through with me. And
Yeah.
it's more of a safety precaution than anything.
Yeah.
And even in today's world, I feel like as much of a bummer, it's becoming more practical.
Yeah.
So.
Ugh. And I've been to a few open houses, and always strangers and, stuff coming in, and
Yeah.
it's, you just never know.
Yeah.
And I've never had that, like, a part of the job, that being as part of something that you needed to think about as well.
Yeah.
And
I mean, think about, I don't remember who told me this, but when I first got into real estate, I was going to show a house, and the tip was, when I was walking out the door, when you go down to the basement, they walk in front of you. And as early 20s female, I was like, instantly I was on high alert, like trying to think about like, okay, do I have my back turned to these people that I don't know? Am I walking in a way that if they were to want to hurt me or want to do something, like, that I wouldn't be able to see them coming or be able to defend myself first? So, my gosh, I did not, like, I don't remember who told me that, but I just remember thinking when they did, I was like, oh, we're serious.
Yeah.
We have to think about those things, because it's the times and the instances that those things weren't thought about, that something bad happened.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There was that one story. I was talking about this in my other podcast too. There was a lady.
Yep.
How long ago? Gosh, I don't remember. But it's like, oh my gosh. And so it makes me just like, should we put on a kickboxing class?
Yeah.
And like learn a little bit?
Yeah.
Just because in case you guys are. Ugh.
Yeah. And it's sad. I mean, sad to think that that's what we have to do now. But at the same time, I'd much rather be prepared than
not.
And the same thing goes with open houses. I mean, I've been doing them quite frequently lately, just to get more people in the door. And like, I've had to think about that, like trying to remember, I did an open house for an agent in our office a couple weeks ago, and it was steady traffic like the whole time, which was awesome. But it was also like, I didn't see everyone come through that door.
Yeah.
And when I go to lock up,
yeah,
I'm like on high alert, thinking like, well, if someone came in and they know that I'm here by myself and they hid somewhere, this would be the time.
Yeah.
Because they know that I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's something else that, especially those bigger houses, we're seeing like more than one agent or a lender.
Yes.
I know you've done a few.
Yep.
And it's just a safety thing.
Yep.
I mean, while it is a win that, especially if a lender or you were there
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
have that aspect of things, but also the safety precaution
Yes.
of being able to be in the house with someone else.
Yes.
So
It made me very like I wanted to make sure like whoever was in, because there was one time where there was quite a bit of traffic, and then like they would write down and we'd see how many would come in. But I was also trying to check and make sure like, okay, these people are still in the backyard.
yep.
I don't know. It's just not like an
Keeping tabs on where
instinct.
people are.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
Well, and I would hope that, if I wasn't in this profession and I had someone hosting an open house for me, like they would be doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's those times where there's a lot of people that come in that things can either be like stolen or accidentally like broken and not claimed for,
Oh my
or hiding in there for unnecessary reasons.
Do you imagine like Seattle, or like having where the open houses where like 100 people show
No.
up? Like, that's wild.
No, I couldn't imagine. Mainly because I've never had that. But I couldn't imagine. I've heard stories of that happening. But
I've gone, I think, to an open house that I wasn't at all going to buy, but I wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
I've done that,
those
but
are my favorite.
those are fun.
Yeah.
Especially when they're ones that are outside your price range.
Yeah. I've had a couple people that come through, and like since I've been hosting them more often than not, like they come through and it's like, oh hey,
Hi again.
like it's just me. Like we're gonna go
Funny.
get coffee next week because it's like they just want to hang out or
Nice,
something. so.
nice. Well, in our street, there's a couple houses for sale, but I helped at an open house, and Kyle was the oh my gosh, Kyle Meredith. I don't know why I
The
was
host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there and I was like, oh, my kids, because we live on a street full of kids and they congregate from one yard to the next. And so we were sitting there and he goes like, which ones are your kids? Because they were just all over like trying to get snacks. And so it's like, I hope whoever moves into this house, which is our neighbors, I was like, you're going to have kids everywhere probably. So it's a good way to get to know. But oh my gosh, trying to get my own kids out of there, I was like, go. But then it's the neighbors were coming over, and everyone was trying to, oh, what's happening?
Yeah.
But that's fun.
Yeah.
When it comes to clientele, that you haven't ever met, let's kind of build in to how much you've like know the people. Is there a percentage that you can like split that? Is however you've met that you've never met before, and how many you've done work with that you have known?
I would say if we group people in, like the people that I've worked with and then people they know and they refer me, that's probably like 70%
Okay.
of my business,
Yeah.
which makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like if I was willing to help you, like, or if I got the opportunity, not willing, if I got the opportunity to help you, like I trust that you would send me someone or at least give me a heads up that they might be.
Yes. On your way.
Yeah. So, and then the other 30%, like, those random like call-ins when I'm at the office or agent transfer leads, like, or even like commenting on Facebook. I mean, I know that we all see those, hey, looking for a realtor, and then the 432 comments on their recommendations. So the times that I would say those are about 30%. And I always usually try and screen them at the office first.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
and on those posts, I try, now that I have this, I try to post just the link and say, here, check out all these realtors or people I've interviewed. And I'm getting into the growth of more people and more realtors, endless amount, I feel like, because, however many realtors there are, but then into like appraisals and inspectors, and I'm wanting to range that out. And I even am going out of just the LC Valley of like, what else does this area kind of offer?
yeah.
And so on those, it's like, you see the 400 and something comments and it's like, well, here, go to this and you can click and watch your own and do your own little interviews, I guess you'd say. And if you clicked with one more than the other or whatnot, but
100%.
Yeah.
I think that too is a lot of people have that built-in belief that like a lot of agents that I've seen have this built-in belief of like, oh, well, you talk to me first, right? So like we assume, which is poor of us, to think that when a client or a customer comes in that they're coming in to talk to us, right? Well, instead of thinking that it's an interview, we're thinking that it's a meeting.
yes.
And instead, I think that a lot of feelings get hurt sometimes when people aren't upfront and say, hey, I'm interviewing a couple people and I want you to sell yourself to me. I want you to tell me why I should work with you. Which in the back of my head, I wish there was more of. I had a friend of a friend reach out to me a couple weeks ago. No, it was probably closer to a month or two ago. And we met at Hot Shots, and she brought her notebook, and she had a list of questions like, why should I use you? What do you offer? How do you set your experience apart from other people? And granted, I'm sure if you Google questions to ask, there'd be a whole list on there.
Yep.
But there was a time when there wasn't time to interview people. There wasn't time to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So I think that people had a lot of poor experiences because of that. And I wish people would dedicate time to interviewing agents and interviewing lenders and, maybe taking the emotion out of that. And I can't say I've never been in that boat where I've like, hey, I talked to you.
Yeah.
And then I find out, through the grapevine that you went with so-and-so.
Yeah.
It's not my place to reach out and ask why.
Yeah.
But man, do I really want to know why. And if they sold themselves to you in a way that you clicked, like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The common courtesy side of things.
Yeah.
So
Ghosting, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I
ghost culture,
read it.
it's a thing.
It is such a thing.
Yeah.
And I see it. I see it too on, because I do makeup for weddings.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times like I'll get inquiries, and a lot of the time I can't. So it's like no, and so I'll just I'll look if I have the date available, and if I don't, I just will say no. I'm so sorry, and they're like, thank you for getting back to me.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
That is sad.
It's
That's the way that it is.
easy how
Yeah.
you just give a few words like no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to know too. I get in my head too of what else should I have said? Is there anything I could have said different? But it's just, yeah.
Well, especially when people go with someone else, right? Like we do that.
Yeah.
Some people do that dive of like, oh man, that was me.
Yeah.
Instead of the aspect of like, man, I see that you went with so-and-so and I could totally see why. Like if you love working with another agent or love working with another, person in our business and they go with that person, they probably see what you see and they want to experience that. And you can't blame people for doing that.
No.
I just wish there was a little bit more accountability on the side of like, hey, so-and-so reached out to me. They said they had talked to you.
Yeah.
So in case they don't say anything to you, I feel like you deserve to know, like they've signed a buyer's rep with me.
Yeah.
Or, they've decided to proceed with me. That's like, it's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
But that's how these
So
relationships in these valleys, like they either make or break
Yeah.
because of things like that.
Oh yeah. And just everyone knows someone in terms of just how small, big our area is.
Yeah.
And well, so-and-so, I know someone that used this person that they might have had a great experience, but then they're like, well, I'm sticking with it because they said to and all this stuff. But
Just because someone's had a good experience with someone does not mean you will.
no.
Firm believer in that. And that's why I always advocate to be like, knowledge is power.
Yep.
Relationships are power.
Yep.
If you walk into an office and you talk with someone and you don't feel comfortable with that,
Yep.
you have no obligation unless you signed a contract.
Yep.
And even then, I'm sure there's a way you can get out of it.
figure it out. Well, social media, that's just, and I have interviewed several realtors that have never had that as a form of marketing.
Yeah.
To now. Could you imagine not having that? Like, I don't know.
No, because growing up in it, I mean, granted, when I was little, right, we didn't MySpace.
Yeah. Yes.
And even then, I don't know what year I really got into that, but the aspect of like, we come from the people that's like, we couldn't imagine life without these things.
No.
So it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, oh, well, you didn't used to post these houses on Marketplace?
How would you know that they were?
You're telling me people used to drive around to look for houses?
Yeah.
That's wild.
I loved MySpace because you could put like your song.
Yeah.
Like what your mood was.
Yes. I'd be curious what your song is today, Jenny.
It's a little. It's been a day. I don't even know.
Something by Murphy Lee,
Probably
perhaps.
little rap. Probably a little emo. I'm having an emo moment. Jared's not even paying attention. the thought too of like getting more people, and I don't know how I don't know how I'm asking this. I guess maybe is what are some ways that you're doing things to like get more people? Like, I don't know. Maybe you don't want to share that.
No, I
No?
think that everyone's kind of, whether they want to admit it or not, like we're probably all relatively doing the same thing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
different capacities.
Especially with social media
Yeah.
and like all the things you can do.
I think that I really hone in on like word of mouth. You know, providing those people that I have been able to help and who've chosen to stay in communication with me. Like I really try and like drive home those relationships and in hopes of, you know, that full turn. I am the type of person that if all that's to come from the relationship that we had was that relationship, that's fine. And anything else above that is extra to me. So while I would love to be everyone's top choice that I've ever helped, I know that's not realistic. But I think to me, word of mouth is huge. Really like I say spoiling, but just knowing like, hey, I valued our time together. I valued like gaining you know, becoming a part of your family for the little bit I was.
Yes.
And whether that be 5 years ago, really a couple years ago, or a month ago, like I want it to be that you are always, you know, those little celebrations and wins are a huge deal. You know, like having people that I'd helped them buy a house a couple years ago, and he decided to open his own business. And it's like, I have no interest in his business, like not my thing.
Sure.
It's cool that you want to do it. But like supporting them, buying a t-shirt,
Yeah.
or, you know, sharing their name, like,
Yeah.
because to me those things are huge. So I would hope that, you know, in the backside of things that they would play a big part in that.
Huge. Oh, that's 100% of my bring in is agent based. I can't wait for the day to just have it to where I have someone fresh. They don't never looked at like or don't know who to work with, and I would just love to have like that golden goose egg and just hand it off to someone and just say, this is these people. And for that, you know, I'm, you know, all the clients that I've worked with, same thing, just word of mouth, referring. And I love feedback. I'm one of those that just like, if there's anything I could have done differently, is there anything that I could have improved or, you know, made things.
Yeah.
I love it because then it works towards a better future in my career. And I would rather know instead of it being behind my back or like, she was annoying.
And that's too much of what we see on social media. I mean, shaming people for a poor experience, or, you know, a poor product. And it's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about it. I never want someone to walk away and feel like they got anything less than 100% for me. So to be able to see those things, especially about people I know, and granted, like that's our perspective of someone, right? So there's two sides to every story, and then the truth, right? So whether or not everything happened, you have your feelings for a reason.
Yeah.
And I might not agree with them, but I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. So I see that, and I feel bad that that's the way we're going.
Yeah.
In a negative mindset of like, I'm just going to share the bad things. Granted, there's people that like boast about, you know, their experiences or the restaurants they love, or you know, the wine they like to drink, things like that we always see. But I really think that I think that there's a space for negative commentary in the sense of like a negative review. But I think if you don't give someone the opportunity to fix it or explain the ins and outs of why things were the way they were, I don't think there's a space for the negativeness.
It's so true.
So,
man,
it's a bummer.
That was a good answer. Dang. Well, it's probably been a good chunk of your time.
That's okay.
How long did it take us to even get going?
A minute.
Well, Emily, I I'm so thankful that we got to do this today, the day that we had a signing together, which I thought was so cool.
I know.
And that one,
Maybe that was the reason it needed to be extended.
right? This is it. We picked the date of the podcast way before we knew the closing.
Yeah.
Let's just do it on the same day.
We'll call it. That's a good choice.
That's a good choice. And I just, hearing your story and the way that you communicate things is very strong, but it's not like, I don't know. You could have convinced me to do something and I would do it probably because you're like,
Well, if you want to stay at your house, I'd love to have
where am I going to go? But no, I think the way that you structure your answers and just the way that you put together your thoughts and feelings, also wanting it to be known, but not like, it's just that's you. And I loved it. And it's just the way that it should be, is promoting yourself and not having that, like, I don't know. I don't want to say like everything's so shiny and new but the realness.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I felt it and I appreciate it so much.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And I really think that having more of these conversations, breaking that social media narrative that's been created, is really going to be the key. So I don't know if I'm going to have that key forever.
You're breaking part of that barrier.
But I'd love to start it.
Let's do it. Murphy Lee, go. Cheers.